I stood at a lovely Airbnb in Iowa for my little brother's graduation. He didn't know I was going to make it, so we threw a surprise party at the Airbnb. While we were setting up, my other brother and I went down to the basement to get an extra table. The second we got down there, we looked at each other and said, "Yup, it's scary here." We searched for the table. The longer I spent in the basement, the greater the feeling of dread grew in me. We found the extra table and headed back upstairs, joking about how creepy a seemingly normal basement was. My whole family got together and the family started. While we were celebrating, my girlfriend decided she'd run the downstairs washer. She was going to go down alone when she came back and asked me to go with her since it was creepy. Again, I went down and rushed to leave. The basement was now officially scary to me. The party continued and we had a wonderful time. As the night started to settle, people got in their Ubers back to their hotels, and now it was just me and my girlfriend, unwinding after an afternoon of eating and drinking. We were relaxing when the laundry buzzer went off. I looked at her and she said she didn't pick up the load from earlier. I thought it was strange that it hadn't beeped hours ago. We headed down to the basement. Again, she stopped at the stairs to the basement and asked me to go first. As I was going down, the buzzer on the washer went off again, scaring us. We both jumped. I hurried down, grabbed the laundry, and headed upstairs to let it air dry. As we finished, I could tell she was still nervous, so we decided to go through the house and lock all the windows and doors. This is standard when we visit an Airbnb. We never miss this step. My girlfriend stays beside me this whole time. We finally have one last door, the door to the back garden right outside the kitchen and at the top of the basement. I go and lock the door, ignoring the sense of dread I felt with my back turned to the basement. I should mention this was an oldish house, so the stairs were steep, and the bedroom where we slept was probably originally an attic. To turn on the lights upstairs, you had to flip a switch at the bottom of the stairs. As we made our way in the dimly lit house to the light switch, I think our sense of tiredness overcame the dread we had. I flipped on the switch and headed for the stairs. Just as I did, I heard a loud banging sound like the sound of pots or something metallic clanging. It was a fast tone. My girlfriend's face was full of fear, and I'm sure mine was too. I began to go to the kitchen where there was a knife. But then I heard the whacking again. At the top of the stairs, I turned to look against the now illuminated attic and saw a ceiling fan turned on to its max setting and its mounting pole making the sound. I ran upstairs and turned off the fan. My girlfriend was close behind me. We got ready for bed. I headed downstairs to turn off the light switch and went upstairs. I looked outside the window of the attic to check on my car out front. Everything was good. We began to fall asleep. It was a restless night, hot and stuffy. I had dreams of seeing a shadowy figure out on the lawn. I woke up the next morning, tired. I made my way down to the kitchen to brew some coffee. As I was turning around, I looked at the staircase to the basement. Something was wrong, and I don't know why, but I was drawn to the basement again. I looked down the stairs and walked down. I looked around and saw nothing. I headed upstairs. We had breakfast, packed our bags, and got ready to go. As we were doing one last sweep, I checked the kitchen one more time to make sure everything was in good shape. Just as I was about to say, "All good, let's go," that damned laundry machine buzzed. Both I and my girlfriend were just like, "Nope," and proceeded to get the fuck out. As we were leaving in a rush, I grabbed the bags and told my girlfriend to start the car. As I was, the fan upstairs turned on again and began making the whacking noise. I've never bolted so fast out of a house. When I got to the car, my girlfriend saw the look of panic on my face. What happened? The fan turned on again. I got her out of the driver's seat and we sped off to collect our thoughts at a local diner. I texted the Airbnb host that the washer kept making noises and that I couldn't figure out how to turn off the ceiling fan upstairs. Before we get into the next story, if you come for the first time, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon for upcoming scary stories. We need your support. Please share these stories with your friends and family. Thanks. I stayed in an Airbnb that was an old farmhouse. It was on a secluded road and we were there in October. There was a chill in the air and the evenings had that quiet early dark that makes them just a little extra spooky. We arrived around 9 p.m. The host left the lights on inside so it looked inviting and was easy to spot as we arrived with our dog in tow. As we pulled up, I felt a shiver run down my spine. The farmhouse stood tall against the darkening sky, its windows glowing warmly from within. My partner, Sarah, squeezed my hand reassuringly as we unloaded our bags from the car. Our dog Max sniffed at the unfamiliar surroundings, his tail wagging cautiously. Inside, the farmhouse was quaint yet cozy. The creaky wooden floors added to its charm and contributed to the eerie atmosphere. Sarah lit some candles while I checked out the kitchen, finding it well stocked with essentials. We settled in for the night, hoping for a peaceful stay away from the hustle and bustle of the city. As we lay in bed, the quiet of the countryside surrounded us. But soon, strange things began to happen. I heard footsteps outside our bedroom door, but when I went to investigate, no one was there. Sarah dismissed it as the old house settling, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. The next morning, we decided to explore the surrounding area. The countryside was beautiful, with rolling hills and vibrant autumn foliage. But as we walked, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It was as if unseen eyes were following our every move. That evening, as darkness fell, the farmhouse took on a more ominous vibe. Sarah and I were sitting in the living room when the lights flickered. I glanced at her nervously, but she brushed it off as a power surge. However, when the lights suddenly went out completely, we both jumped in surprise. I fumbled for my phone, using its flashlight to guide us to the fuse box. As I flipped the switches, the lights flickered back on, but something felt different. It was as if the air itself had changed, becoming heavier somehow. That night, as we lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. I tossed and turned, unable to find peace. Suddenly, I felt a cold breeze sweep through the room, chilling me to the bone. I pulled the covers tighter around me, but the chill persisted. Then I heard it, a faint whispering coming from the corner of the room. I sat up, heart pounding, and saw a shadowy figure standing in the darkness. My breath caught in my throat as I stared, unable to move. "Sarah," I stammered, shaking her awake. "Dee, did you see that?" But when she looked, there was nothing there. She assured me it was just a trick of the light, but I knew what I had seen. There was something in that farmhouse with us, something dark and malevolent. The following days were filled with more strange occurrences. Objects would go missing, only to reappear in odd places hours later. The temperature would fluctuate wildly, leaving us shivering one moment and sweating the next. And always, there was the feeling of being watched, of never being truly alone. Desperate for answers, I decided to confront whatever was haunting the farmhouse. That night, as Sarah slept soundly beside me, I sat up and addressed the empty room. "If there's someone here," I said, my voice trembling, "please, show yourself. We mean no harm." For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, slowly, the temperature in the room began to drop. I watched in awe as a faint mist formed in the air, coalescing into the shape of a woman. She was beautiful yet ethereal, her features blurred and indistinct, but there was a sadness in her eyes that sent a chill down my spine. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The ghostly figure hesitated, as if unsure how to answer. Then, in a voice like wind through the trees, she spoke. "I am trapped here," she said, her words echoing in the stillness. "Alone and forgotten, I seek release." I felt a pang of sympathy for the spirit before me. Whatever had happened to her, she didn't deserve to be stuck in this limbo. "We'll help you," I promised, reaching out a trembling hand. "We'll find a way to set you free." The ghostly figure nodded, a faint smile playing at the corners of her lips. Then, with a soft sigh, she faded away, leaving behind nothing but a lingering sense of peace. In the days that followed, Sarah and I did everything we could to uncover the farmhouse's dark past. We searched through old records and newspaper clippings, piecing together the tragic story of the woman who had once lived there. It turned out she had been a young bride, her life cut tragically short by a terrible accident. Her spirit had remained trapped in the farmhouse ever since, unable to move on to the afterlife. Armed with this knowledge, Sarah and I performed a ritual to help release the ghost from her earthly bonds. As we spoke the words of the incantation, I felt a sense of profound relief wash over me. It was as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders, leaving behind nothing but lightness and peace. And as the last echoes of the ritual faded away, I knew that we had succeeded. The farmhouse was finally free of its ghostly inhabitants, and Sarah and I could finally enjoy our stay without fear or apprehension. But as we packed our bags to leave, I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't the only ones to have encountered the farmhouse's dark secret. I wondered how many other unsuspecting guests had been haunted by the restless spirit within its walls, and if they too had found the courage to confront the darkness that lurked within. 2 years ago, we went to Cannes, France, and rented a villa in the fancy hills of Super Cannes. My family, consisting of my wife, our 2 kids, and me, were thrilled to spend our vacation in such a beautiful location. The villa, found on Airbnb, seemed like a steal. Spacious, well-furnished, and with a stunning view of the French Riviera. The first few days went by smoothly. We explored the picturesque streets of Cannes, indulged in delicious French cuisine, and lounged by the villa's pool, basking in the warm Mediterranean sun. But as the sun dipped below the horizon and darkness enveloped the villa, an eerie feeling settled over us. It started with small things, strange noises in the dead of night, shadows flitting across the windows, and the sensation of being watched. At first, we brushed it off as our imagination playing tricks on us, attributing it to the unfamiliarity of our surroundings. But as the days passed, the feeling of unease only grew stronger. One evening, while my wife was putting our kids to bed, I decided to take a walk around the villa to clear my head. As I strolled along the dimly lit path, a shiver ran down my spine. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was lurking in the shadows, observing my every move. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness, a tall, menacing silhouette with piercing eyes that seemed to glow in the moonlight. My heart hammered in my chest, as I realized that the person standing before me was no ordinary stranger. He was a criminal, wanted by the authorities for God knows what. Before I could react, he lunged towards me, his intentions clear. With adrenaline coursing through my veins, I managed to dodge his attack and sprint back to the safety of the villa. I locked the doors and windows, praying that my family was safe inside, but the nightmare was far from over. Throughout the night, we heard the sound of footsteps outside, accompanied by whispered threats that sent chills down our spines. We huddled together in terror, fearing for our lives as we waited for dawn to break. As the first light of morning filtered through the curtains, we breathed a sigh of relief, believing that the worst was behind us. But our relief was short-lived when we discovered that the man who had terrorized us throughout the night was still lurking nearby, hiding in the dense foliage that surrounded the villa. Terrified and desperate for help, I dialed the emergency number, pleading with the operator to send help as soon as possible. Within minutes, sirens blared in the distance as police cars raced up the winding roads of Super Can, their flashing lights illuminating the darkness. With guns drawn and flashlights in hand, the police combed the area, searching for the dangerous fugitive who had turned our vacation into a nightmare. And then, just when all hope seemed lost, they found him, cowering in a bush, his eyes wide with fear as he realized that his reign of terror had come to an end. Relief washed over us as the police apprehended the criminal, leading him away in handcuffs. We watched from the safety of the villa, grateful to be alive and unharmed after the harrowing ordeal we had endured. In the days that followed, we packed our bags and left the villa behind, eager to put the traumatic experience behind us. But the memory of that terrifying encounter would stay with us forever, serving as a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurk in the darkness, even in the most idyllic of settings. As we boarded our flight back home, I couldn't help but glance back at the villa one last time, grateful to be leaving it behind and praying that no other family would ever have to experience the terror that had haunted us during our stay in Super Can.